Feeling the sit bones into the ground. The spine elongate, pull the chin back, lengthen up through the crown. Soften the shoulders. Soften the face. And begin to let go. Letting go of the to-do list. Letting go of the to-get list. And coming into this present moment. Feeling the quality of the air as it touches the skin. Notice any sounds in the background, in the foreground. And bring your awareness to your breath. Breath coming in through the nostrils. Breath going out through the nostrils. Chest and belly rising on the inhale. Chest and belly falling on the exhale. Chest and belly rising on the inhale. Chest and belly falling on the exhale. Soften the shoulders. Soften the face. Lengthen the spine so we feel ourselves just sitting up a little bit more. Shoulder blades together and down.
Do it tomorrow.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
We can now.
Yeah.
We've been abandoned by our team.
Yeah, you guys hung in there. Awesome. Hang on a second. I'm coming back. I'm coming back.
Listen, Greg, if you didn't want to work with us today, all you had to do was say so.
Yeah, exactly. Say, hey, you
But
know,
we actually cracked open the mimosas, which you can't
Yeah.
see us.
Sorry.
I apologize. I'm not exactly sure what happened. Something, just like kicked out on my end. I'm actually trying to live stream this on YouTube, and then maybe that might have had something to do with it.
Okay.
And but we'll just kind of we'll try again. I had to like reboot my whole computer, start like turn it off, turn it on again, uh, and so here
Well, we had a wonderful silent meditation for quite a while, and then it kept going and going.
Going and going.
And Barbara couldn't keep her mouth quiet, so that got us all going, right, Barbara?
Oh, hey, Greg, I've been promoting you for tomorrow, so you better be there.
I'll be there. But anyways, thank you for staying and being, it's a perfect, I think I was able to hear you guys for a while. So if someone said like, this is a perfect chance to be with like, groundlessness or something like that. It was a good comment. I remember that. So thank you guys.
You want us to mute?
Yeah, probably. That might be a little bit easier. But feel free, as we talk about this, to chime in at some point if you feel like you want to add a comment or something like that. So here we are. We're at near the end of this awesome book right here, right? So some of you may have gotten it. I know some people got it like as an audio book, and it's just been a great journey going into this again. It's been a while since I've read this book, and it's been really amazing to kind of to go through it. It hasn't, as I've mentioned before, it hasn't always been easy. I mean, the as I've said in class before, there's a reason why people don't do the deeper spiritual practices, because they force us to confront our stuff. I mean, it really is a profound form of therapy, really, and so most of the time we're just like, you know what, I'm not sure I really want to go there, and so looking at our stuff more profoundly is a real act of courage and a real act of kind of commitment to being with reality, but also to being happy and free. Again, most of us on some level identify with our suffering, whatever it might be, and so to actually say, you know what, no, I'm actually done with this, and I'm going to work towards being a free being and helping others to get free. It's really an incredibly courageous act to do so. And so I really commend all of you for going on this journey with me to whatever extent we're on it, right? The other thing is like, we're all householders here. We all have responsibilities. We have people that we care about, and we care about their well-being too. So it's a dance, right? We're dancing with ourselves. We're dancing with them. We're dancing with reality. But as the end of this book really points out, everything is our teacher. Everything is an opportunity to awaken. Everything that's happening is a chance to get free. And so we make this sort of commitment to being with whatever the situation arises. So just like you guys did a few minutes ago, like, oh, Greg's gone. What do we do now? And that is actually a moment for freedom. How can we just be with this situation, or how can we interact with it in a way which is maybe moving us in a direction that we like, but not getting overly attached, right? It's just sort of like, let's use everything that comes up as a moment to either learn or grow or be, in some way, shape, or form. And so this book has been really a great teacher for me, and I hope for you as well. I'm going to read a little bit from the last chapters of the book, and then we'll kind of contemplate some of what she has to say a little bit, and then we can finish up again with some meditation and just being together. So this is chapter 19, 3 methods for working with chaos. We practice to liberate ourselves from a burden, the burden of a narrow perspective caused by craving, aggression, ignorance, and fear. We're burdened by the people with whom we live, by ongoing daily situations, and most of all, by our own personalities. Through practice, we realize that we don't have to obscure the joy and openness that is present in every moment of our existence. We can awaken to basic goodness, our birthright. When we are able to do this, we no longer feel burdened by depression, worry, or resentment. Life feels spacious, like the sky and the sea. There's room to relax and breathe and swim, to swim so far out that we no longer have to have a reference point of the shore. Times are difficult. Awakening is no longer a luxury or an ideal. It's becoming critical. We don't need to add more depression, more discouragement, or more anger to what's already here. It's becoming essential that we learn how to relate sanely with difficult times. The earth seems to be beseeching us to connect with joy and discover our innermost essence. This is the best way we can benefit others. So I love that little paragraph. And, she wrote that over 20 years ago. So it's kind of cool to read it today. There are 3 traditional methods for relating directly with difficult circumstance, a path of awakening and joy. The first method we call no more struggle. So that's basically the method we just did in the breathing, right? We just come back to I am here. I am okay. I am breathing. We're not identifying with all this other stuff that's going on around us. We're not even identifying with our basic, what might we have a little discomfort, something like that. We just notice it, but we're not creating drama. We're not perpetuating drama. We're not reading our news feed, right? We're coming back to a basic okayness. No more struggle. The second is using poison as medicine. And we'll talk about that. That's basically the Tonglen method, right? Of I'm going to take in the pain, the suffering, which is mine, but it's also everybody else's, right? So, whether it be fear of death or fear of financial insecurity or fear of your children getting hurt or whatever it might be, guess what? Pretty much everybody else has it too, And so you're taking in that suffering and you're releasing out loving kindness. You're releasing out, you're transmuting it. You're putting it to peace. You're committing it to peace. You're taking that energy and transmuting it. You're becoming a conduit for transmutation. And the third is seeing whatever arises as enlightened wisdom. And so this is an additional one that we haven't really talked about. And that's basically that whatever is arising is your teacher. Whatever is happening is your teacher. And so you make a kind of an unconditional, they talk in the next chapter about Sayama, I think they call it. Sayama, which is kind of like Samyama in yoga. It's a commitment to the truth, a commitment to reality. In the Buddhist sense, you would make it to a teacher. You would have a Sayama relationship with a teacher, which basically when that happens, it's not something you do right away in Buddhism, like you would have to practice for a long time, usually in a traditional sense. And then you would have this sort of commitment to a teacher. And in that commitment, you commit to stay with the teacher, and the teacher commits to stay with you for the rest of your lives. That doesn't mean you're living together. It just means that you are unconditionally surrendering to them, and they are unconditionally you. Basically, it's a pact that both of you have. It's kind of like, and she describes it like a marriage, that we are going to use each other in a way to get enlightened, to get free, and in order to do that, we have to sort of, it's basically a commitment to the truth of whatever arises in the context of this relationship. But you can do that. One, you can do that unilaterally. You can do it to some, like I am not, like, I mean, imagine most of you have been parents, like you do some form of that with your children, right? But if you really look a little closer at that, there are lots of manipulative tendencies, right? Because you want your children to turn out a certain way. You want them to, even if you say, no, I want them to be themselves, we still can't help ourselves, right? We want them to be safe. We want them to fit in. We want all these things. So so it is a commitment that you have to your children for the rest of their lives. But it's not as unconditional as you probably think. And so this, in a way, is that really you're in this kind of relationship that they're talking about. It's really like we have no other agenda except to get enlightened. And so we're gonna call each other out on our stuff, on our illusions, in a kind way. We're gonna be kind and supportive and all that sort of thing, but we're not gonna let each other escape. We're not gonna let each other out of our wanting to stay attached to our illusions. And so it's a very different idea. It's this idea of maybe a spiritual friend. A spiritual friend is somebody who is there to help you get free of your suffering, which means you usually have to confront your stuckness, right? A spiritual friend is not, I think I've told you this story before. If you find somebody who loves you, who you love, who triggers your stuff, that person is a gift, right? That person is now a gift, and you get to decide what to do with that gift. You can eschew it. You can say, you know what, I just can't deal with that guy, or you can say, you know what, let me use this relationship in a loving way. I've gotten how do you say it? Not chastised, or gotten negative feedback for this comment of we're basically using each other to get our needs met, right? To get and those needs can be very altruistic. They could be, I want to help other people, and so I need other people to help me help other people. But if our needs are to get free and enlightened, then we're going to find people who are going to help point out where we're stuck, right? And where we're not stuck. They're going to love us and care about us, but they're not going to keep reinforcing illusions, which many of us, when we're insecure, less along the path, we try to surround ourselves with people who actually reinforce our illusions. We want to find people who reinforce our sense of who we think we are. We want to, and we kind of get in a little cluster of reinforcing our perspective on the world, and that, as we know, can lead to all kinds of delusional and ultimately aggressive and hurtful tendencies. I'll tell you a realization I had yesterday. This is kind of interesting, and but again, when you wake up, it was a moment of awakening for me, right? And then you realize, in that moment of awakening, you realize how many other things am I misperceiving? Am I delusional to? It's like, and that this is probably just the tip of the iceberg. And of course it's happened another time. And that will be, I've read about, there's part of these protests that are going on. There's some protests that want to take down a statue of President Lincoln that's at the Lincoln Memorial. right? So it's not the big memorial one itself, right? But there's one at the memorial in that around there, where it's a depiction of him seated with a black man kind of kneeling on the ground, unshackled, right? And so it was dedicated by President Grant in like 1875 or something. It's been there for 140, 50, almost 50 years, right? So it's been there a long time, and I've seen this statue when I was visiting the Lincoln Memorial, and I remember it vaguely. I don't remember it really in detail, but I remember it vaguely. And now I'm thinking, oh yeah, that's got to go. That is good. That thing has got to go. It's just not right. This is not right. But that never occurred to me before. You know, it never occurred to me that that statue, which is obviously a sort of still represents white oppression, basically. You know, you could interpret it all kinds of ways, but it's pretty obvious, right? Is like that's got to go. You know, even though I have all kinds of strong feelings about Lincoln and, you know, the good things that he did, that story is what statues really are. They're just stories encapsulated in bronze. Is not helpful. Story is not helpful, you know, and so I use that as an example of when we set ourselves on a path of truth. You start to see how you didn't see things before, how you just went by you and you never even noticed it because it was just the water you were swimming in at the time and you weren't available to see it. And so these are just kind of examples of this. Everything that comes up is an opportunity to get free. It's an opportunity to see things more clearly. So she then goes into talking about these methods which we have described. So this first method of no struggle is epitomized in the Vipassana instruction, which has to do with the breath. Meditation practice is how we stop fighting with ourselves, how we stop struggling with circumstances, emotions, or moods. This basic instruction is a tool that we can use to train in our practice in our own lives. Whatever arises, we can look at it with non-judgmental attitude. Right? This is the key, non-judgmental attitude. This is so hard to do when we start feeling triggered, but we can use that breath, right? I come back to the breath. I come back to my center. And then I can sort of see this situation. I can feel it. It could still feel quite hot, quite uncomfortable, but I'm not needing to run away. I'm not needing to escape. I can hold this space. This is an opportunity for me to expand and grow. This instruction applies to working with unpleasantness in its myriad guises, whatever or whoever arises. Train again and again in looking at it and seeing it for what it is, without calling it names, without hurling rocks, without averting your eyes. Let all the stories go. The innermost essence of mind is without bias. Things arise and things dissolve forever and ever. That's the way it is. So that's just, I think, so helpful that our mind, the innermost part of our mind is simply the observer, that witness consciousness that we talk about in yoga sometimes, that Vijnana Maya Kosha, right? We're trying to abide in that place as often as possible. And from that place, we can access Ananda Maya Kosha, right? So that expansive oneness with everything, but it also allows us to see what we would call below. This is all kind of just a model of what is going on around us without getting caught in the drama or the fear or how's this going to work out for me, and and we can just we just sort of stay centered. That second part, again, using poison as medicine. We can use difficult situations as fuel for waking up. In general, this idea is introduced to us with Tonglen. When anything difficult arises, any kind of conflict, any notion of unworthiness, anything that feels distasteful, embarrassing, or painful, instead of trying to get rid of it, we breathe it in. The three poisons are passion, includes craving and addiction, aggression, and ignorance, including denial or the tendency to shut down and close out. We would usually think of these poisons as something bad, something to be avoided. But that isn't the attitude here. Instead, they become seeds of compassion and openness. When suffering arises, the Tonglen instruction is to let the storyline go and breathe it in. Not just the anger, the resentment, or loneliness that we feel, but the identical pain of others. And in this very moment are also feeling rage, bitterness, and isolation. We breathe it in for everybody. This poison is not just our personal misfortune, our fault, our blemish, our shame. It's part of the human condition. It's our kinship with all living things, the material we need in order to understand what it's like to stand in another person's shoes. Instead of pushing it away or running from it, we breathe in and connect with it fully. We do this with the wish that all of us could be free of suffering. Then we breathe out, sending out a sense of big space, a sense of ventilation or freshness. We do this with the wish that all of us could relax and experience the innermost essence of our being. So that's a beautiful paragraph. And it's, again, this tool that we can use for ourselves and for others. When we're feeling that suffering come on, we can just breathe it in and let it go. And this is how we actually start to develop, as she alludes to, compassion and empathy. We start to increase our ability to not only hold our own stuff, but to hold the stuff of others as well. We can really be with their pain because we have built up a capacity for it. We can feel it, we can allow it. We're not panicked by it. You know, we are able to stay present and available. And this kind of leads to the last part. The third method for working with chaos is to regard whatever arises as the manifestation of awakened energy. We regard ourselves as already awake. We can regard our world as already sacred. Traditionally, the image used for regarding whatever arises as the very energy of wisdom is the charnel ground. The charnel ground are basically the graveyards, right? And perhaps the closest thing to a charnel ground in our world is not a graveyard, but a hospital emergency room. That could be the image for our working basis, which is grounded in some honesty about how the human realm functions. It smells, it bleeds, it is full of unpredictability, but at the same time, it is radiant with wisdom, good food, that which nourishes us and which is beneficial and pure. Regarding what arises as awakened energy reverses our fundamental habit of trying to avoid conflict, trying to make ourselves better than we are, trying to smooth things out and pretty them up, trying to prove that pain is a mistake and would not exist in our lives if only we did the right things. This view turns that particular paradigm completely around, encouraging us to become interested in looking at the charnel ground of our lives as the working basis for attaining enlightenment. So again, this is where that courage that I talked about at the very beginning comes in. You know, you got to have some courage to do that, you know, to say that I'm not going to try to avoid painful situations. I'm not going to try to manifest them, but I'm not going to move away from them, right? I am going to actually seek them out, not create them, but seek them out. Where do I feel? Remember, I've talked about how do we create aliveness in our lives, we do that by finding the things that scare us. What actually am I afraid of? And how do I move in that direction, right? That becomes an opportunity for growth. Let me allow, there's a line in here, and I'm not sure if I can find it, but it kind of reminds me of Michael Singer's quote about a spiritual being always feels like they're on the edge and being pushed through it, right? And she says here, and again, maybe I'll find the quote exactly or not, but that basically the same thing. That it's something about like we always feel like we're in chaos, something like that. Oh, we're about to panic. That's what it is. The spiritual being feels like they're on the precipice of panic at any moment. You know? Like, and again, who's going to sign up for that, right? So it's intense. It's beautiful, because what we realize is we can actually hold that space. Here it is, right here. I found it. According to a famous quote, the student of Buddhism should always be in a state of panic. It is so unfamiliar to us to make such a total commitment to being awake that it unnerves us. Once, when I was spending hours and hours doing a certain practice, I became so agitated that I could hardly sit still. Later, I told Rinpoche that I felt irritated at everything, even little specks of dust. He said that happened because the practice was demanding me to be sane, and I wasn't used to it yet. I mean, it's just so classic, you know, at these moments where you just want to get out. You just want to, you kind of want to scream. You just want to like, and the teacher will say, oh yeah, that's exactly what's supposed to happen right now. And you're just like, I'm not feeling like that's helpful right now. And, you know, and I've had this happen with my teachers. I mean, that very thing. It's like, well, yeah, that's it. That's the practice. And you're just like, oh, wow, why did I sign up for this? The same goes for the mind. As we practice, we see that thoughts do not go away. They become more precise and less substantial. At the level of the mind, we break samyama by making things wrong or making things right. We think we have some choice to make, some alternative to just being there with not solving anything, not resolving anything. We could say that at that level of the mind, breaking samyama is feeling that we must come up with a solution to a problem, or feeling that there is a solution or a problem at all. That might give you some idea how difficult it is to keep samyama. Samyama is, again, that commitment to reality, that commitment to your teacher, you know. And so what happens is we can't help ourselves but to get caught into thinking things could be better if, and then we'll spend hours and hours and hours just on that train, right? Running around, trying to make things better, trying to get things on, and we are putting off our enlightenment, you know, when we do that. Doesn't mean it's all bad. I'm not trying to disparage that, because again, as householders, we have, you know, that's part of our tendency as well, and part of our dharma, but just recognizing that we are often distracting ourselves. We're reinforcing the ego. We're reinforcing this program that something's not okay and we're not good enough in some way. And we're not being with and going through the discomfort aspect of actually I am okay. And so this is kind of those three things. So we have some tools now. We have these tools that we can take with us. So we have that breath tool that we did at the very beginning, where we just come back to the breath. We just come back to feeling the breath, particularly that exhale breath, right? We're just letting go, letting go, letting go, allowing whatever arises, letting go, letting go, letting go, allowing whatever arises, letting go, letting go, letting go. And that's just that, just doing that 5 minutes a day, you know, particularly if you do 5 minutes a day in the morning, 5 minutes a day in the evening, that's going to change your whole life. No question about it. Because it's not only going to change your mind, it's going to change your whole physical body as to how it relates to stress, how it relates to stuff coming up, right? So it's not going to be as reactive. It's going to automatically start using some of these skills because it's going to feel, it's going to get, oh, here's some stress coming in. What do? Oh, I just breathe, right? Pretty soon, if you do this every day, that will be your baseline reaction. Doesn't mean you won't have other things come up or you'll lose it sometimes, but that your body, your somatic system will start to respond to stress by elongating the exhale, right? And that will keep all the cortisol and everything. It's like the train won't leave the station, or it takes a lot more to get the train to leave the station because your immediate reaction is not, okay, I got to do something about this. I got to fix this. This is horrible. You know, it's more like, oh, let me breathe, you know, and after a while, you won't have to even think, let me breathe. It'll be your response to the sensation of disturbance, right? And so that's the key one. That's the biggest one right there, I think, my experience. And because it's kind of the baseline, right? And then you have that practice of specifically drawing in things that are disturbing, things that are sad, things that make you angry, things that make you frustrated, things that make you afraid, right? We look for them. We go out and we find them and we breathe them in and we breathe out loving kindness, spaciousness, release, letting go. So that's another level and another tool that we can incorporate, particularly when something's arising that is bothering us, right? So we're having troubles letting go of the story, right? So, okay, use the story, bring it in, and recognize that your story is not unique. You know, it's just like, that's the other thing. It's like the problem is we get into this kind of, woe is me, why is this happening to me? You know, trust me, it's not just you. You know, everybody is going through some version of it. And so we breathe it in for ourselves, we breathe it in for others, and we let it go. And this just, again, creates space around what's happening for us. And the third thing is to look at everything is our teacher, right? Everything is just an opportunity to awaken. It could be the birds singing, right? I'm not saying, not all of this stuff is unpleasant, right? There's lots of pleasant things going on all the time, right? Where do we focus our attention, right? And so everything that comes into awareness is a teacher. Everything is an opportunity to commit ourselves to the truth of what is happening, whether it's pleasant or unpleasant. It's an opportunity for enlightenment and growth. We can do it in how one of the exercises is when you go into spiritual community. Often they give you mundane tasks to do. Could be sweeping the floor for all morning or whatever, you know, washing dishes for 2 hours, something like that. But what you do is you make it a meditation. You make it an opportunity for loving kindness. You make it an opportunity to serve others. You stop getting into this like, well, why am I washing the dishes all day? You know, it goes back to the carrying water and chopping wood. Why am I stacking wood all day? You know, why am I doing that? Well, because we're going to need wood, you know? And so you stop wondering why you're in this situation. You just realize that this situation calls for purity and cleanliness. Why do we sweep the floor? So that we have a clean house, right? And so then that clean house creates a pure space in which we can be at ease, right? You know, and so we don't lament it, we just do it because it's what creates an ideal space. Not so much about I want people to see that I have a clean house, right? It's more like, oh, I want a clean space in which I can, it's like my yoga space, right? We create a space in which we can be at ease, right? And it doesn't have to be fancy or big or anything like that. It's just about purifying that space. And so those are some of the ideas. Why don't, before we finish up with a meditation for a few minutes, does anybody want to make any comment about this book or this journey through this book? Or want to tell me that I'm full of baloney and need to really get a grip? Anyone want to add anything?
Okay, so I was laughing when you're saying things come up, the birds are chirping. It's not everything's bad. You're right. So just help me out here, everybody. So when I have brand new sunflowers in pots I've planted, we have a garden with wonderful things, and the woodchuck has just come and destroyed the kale, got in, and he's in my sunflower pots. He's cute as can be, but your blood starts to, he's eating all the yellow leaves of the sunflower. Okay, oh, great teacher, how do I, before I have to bring them inside, this is the society we live in. We must have a family of 7 of them now. But I got a little boiled this morning when I saw 2 of them jumping in my pots and eating the flowers. So it's not the birds chirping, I hear them too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good story about how, I mean, these are living beings too, and they're just doing their things. I mean, you could unpack it into, yes, you want to create these flower beds and everything to make things nice for you, make things aesthetic for yourself. But, it's like you could live without those for a while, or, I mean, there's other ways of doing it, or you could just be okay with them eating some of your kale. Maybe they'll get full and get tired. I don't know.
Here we're trying to get back to living from the land.
Right.
And to keep them out of the garden. And it's just like, you're kidding me. And the tomato plants, so somebody got in there. But I just have to laugh because it's hard to be, I feel for these little guys. They're awfully cute. And we can catch them. We put them elsewhere. I feel like, well, now we're breaking up their family. Oh, what a fool. Here I am, worried about these rodents that, are eating my stuff that's for us. And, it's like, how do you sit there and say, isn't that wonderful?
Yeah, that's exactly what you say. That is exactly what you say.
Keep
is
doing
this,
it.
Isn't that
Keep
wonderful?
doing it, people, right?
Yeah, and they're just these living beings too. During the, they don't think, oh, that's Denise's stuff, maybe we shouldn't have it. They're not playing those social games, right? They are just being themselves. And so, and you just used the word mine, right? So you use the word, these are my plants, right?
Yeah, not theirs.
You see your attachment to the plants now, right? And so, it's just another opportunity to learn and to grow. Oh, I am getting attached to these plants and them growing and them being beautiful. And then won't I be a good gardener? And, it's like, you get attached to the whole story around the plants. And then the little chipmunks or whatever come in and they destruct the story, and you start vilifying these little animals that are just doing what animals do, and so I'm not saying there's any right or wrong solution here. You just use the whole thing to see your own attachment to, these are my plants and this is what's supposed to happen and they're supposed to grow like this and then it's going to be beautiful and I'll be a good gardener, and the whole 9 yards comes along, and then something comes in and says, no, it's not going to happen that way, and you get angry. That's the moment of learning right there. That is the moment of expansion. Like, oh, here I am attached to my story around these plants. And of course, like, we're going through all this uncertainty right now. You probably are thinking, oh, won't it be nice if I get I'll use this time to get this little garden going, right? And make it nice and pretty, and it'll be a nice aesthetic thing since we're home so much and all this stuff. But really, when you unpack behind there, the whole impetus is I'm feeling kind of ungrounded in some way, and this will make me feel in some control of my situation.
Well,
You know?
we've been brought up gardening. I've been brought up weeding, so it's not a new thing.
Right.
But I have to say, I feel for the plants. I feel for the aphids that are eating the daisies, and I take care of them like they're little, you know,
Yep.
living organisms. They deserve to blossom. So, you know, it is the yin and the yang. What do I, you know, I guess like some people have things taken care of for them, and that's great. But I'm out there giving myself, saying, you know, maybe I don't care if I have flowers out back. I couldn't care less if someone said, boy, there's nothing out here. But it was, you know, I said, this is going to be kind of cool. So
Yeah.
I don't want to take up time. But, you know, I treat everything a living plant and animal as, you know, I do care. And I really couldn't care less. If they eat all the flowers, who comes over anyway? It doesn't
Well, my
matter.
point is that it's okay. Like, I'm not trying to like pick on you or anything. And I don't, you know, again, want to make this, but it's a good story. It's a good story about how we get attached to things. And then what do we do when that sort of gets interrupted, you know?
Right.
And what, and how do we,
How do you deal with it?
and how do we deal with
Yeah.
it? And that's all. So,
And one more thing, and then I'm going to shut up. I remember you were talking about when you get on a diving board and you're pushed,
yeah.
you know, that's part of just getting into the unknown. I saw a clip, which I'm sure maybe some of you have or not, of Mr. Bean
Oh, yes, yes.
going off the top. He goes up to the highest one. And it is funny, but he goes all the way up there. And I was thinking of you, Greg, and your story, because he gets to the top and he thinks he can do it until he goes to the edge, and then it's massive fear. And it takes a while to get through this skit. But evidently, two young boys come way up and they can't wait for him anymore. And he's finally hanging on by fingertips. And he steps on the hand and down he goes in the water into the abyss. And I just saw that last night and I wanted to share. You've seen it, Barbara, obviously.
Yeah, I have. And you know, and I think when I saw that clip, it kind of reminded me what Greg had talked to us about the diving board, because I saw it quite a while ago. But I found that for myself, that when I confront the fear and just jump off, not knowing if I'm going to make it or not, and that can be a physical thing, or it can be an emotional thing. It can be a loving thing or losing something. That the reality of when that happens is not nearly as bad as worrying about it and spending a lot of energy
Right.
thinking about it. So for me, it's just do it. Just jump in or jump off or jump out of the plane, you know?
Right.
Awesome. Let's finish up with a couple of minutes of meditation, and then we can after we close the class, we can have a couple more minutes of talking if you'd like. Okay. So let's just come back into center for a few more moments and reconnect to our stillness, reconnect to the ground, reconnect to the sky, coming back to the breath. And letting go, softening, allowing, letting the chest and belly rise on the inhale, and letting the chest and belly fall on the exhale. Chest and belly rise on the inhale, chest and belly fall on the exhale. Soften the shoulders, lengthen the spine. Inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. Letting go, letting go, letting go. And letting go with whatever came up for us today in our session, whatever triggers might have come, just noticing them, honoring them, feeling them, and then just on that exhale, let them go. Noticing whatever resistance we might be having. And just letting it go. Notice any impatience that we might be having. I talked about patience this week. And on the exhale, just letting that go as well. With kindness, with compassion. Noticing anything that might have made us angry this week. Feeling it, allowing it. And on the exhale, just letting it go. Softening around it. Giving it room, giving it space. Maybe noticing anything that might have made us a little afraid or scared. Allowing ourselves to breathe that in. Feeling it, allowing it, letting it build. Exhale, just letting it go with compassion, empathy, loving kindness, giving it room, giving it space. You can stick with one thing, or you can keep going, finding other things that are just, again, a little triggering, a little painful, a little scary. Maybe stay with one if you feel there's something with a pretty good amount of energy around it. Just work with that one for a few more breaths. Bringing your palms together. Taking a deep inhale. Exhale, let it go with a sigh. Inhale. May peace be in your heart. May light be in your heart. May love be in your heart. Peace to all, light to all, and love to all. Namaste.